Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Esri GeoDev webinar series. We started this series as a way to continue engaging in developer-related topics and discussions in between dev summits. We recently had our user conference back in July, and we had an ArcGIS Platform for Developers track where in the future, in October, you will be able to view the sessions on YouTube, so you can look out for that. We're also looking forward to our Dev Summit conference in March 2022. Moving forward, in continuation of our GeoDev webinar series, we will continue to have new topics, advanced features, and additional functionality to share with you, so be sure to stay connected with us through our GeoDev webinar series page or any of our social media accounts at Esri GeoDev. We would love to have conversations like these taking place throughout the year so that when we do meet at one of these Dev Summit conferences, it will be as though we never stopped. We hope you get as much or more out of this webinar than you anticipated. Now, we would like to introduce you to our webinar, Deploying Solution Built with ArcGIS and Exploring Opportunities as an Esri Partner. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. We've taken a screenshot of an example of the attendee interface. You should see something that looks like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right corner. You're listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select Use Telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the Questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time throughout the presentation. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. I would now like to introduce you to one of our presenters, Thomas Fair. Thomas, let's get started, shall we?
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Amy. It's great to be here today. Hi, everyone. Thomas Fair. I'm the CTO of our partner program, and I lead our partner technical enablement team. I'm sure I've had the opportunity to work with many of you, and I'm joined here with Brenda. Hey, Brenda.
Hey, Thomas. Hello, everyone. I'm a senior solution engineer on our partner technical enablement team. Really excited to meet all of you today.
Awesome. Great. We have a great agenda planned. First things we're going to do is kind of provide an overview and talk about some core concepts that will really support a lot of the demos we'll be showing you today, as well as a lot of the opportunities we'll be talking about. We'll look at opportunities for developers. And then towards the end, we'll actually talk about partnership. And for those of you who are building products or delivering content, we'll talk about what the value of partnership brings to you as a developer. Talk about resources, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. I think we'll have plenty of time today for your questions, so don't hesitate to submit those questions to us throughout, and we'll cover those at the end. So with that, Brenda, I'll hand things over to you.
Thank you, Thomas. So let's start by talking about why are we here today. So you as developers know how to build powerful apps and solutions. And some of you might be developing with our APIs and SDKs, and some of you might be still exploring your next steps in your developer journey. So now today, we are here to help you envision the future of your unique solutions by integrating with ArcGIS. And in the first card on the slide on the left, we talk about why would you want to build your solutions with ArcGIS. And then the second card answers that why questions and tells us how to make it happen. And the third card is more about how you can go to market once we are technically aligned. So today, I want to emphasize here that the technical alignment will help your solution to fully realize the value from Esri's geospatial software and its ecosystem of users. So now, for example, you might want to embed some base maps or add search engine address capability in your non-GIS centric application. Or on the other hand, you might want to tap into the existing RGS customer base and create a GIS centric web app for specific markets or specific sectors. You can do both types of integrations. You can take both the integration approaches, and how the two approaches would be different is in the first one, you would be embedding the RGS location services within your applications, and just by creating a developer account online. And in the latter, you would integrate with RGS Identity and embed some advanced capabilities within your apps using our APIs and our SDKs. Now we want to discuss with you, before we jump into the next slides, that what is our viewpoint and perspective on what is an application. And there are three types of applications that we will be touching on. The first one is the web application. A web application is built on a web API, such as RGS API for JavaScript. And our mobile application is a downloadable app that is built for your mobile devices. And it is built on our runtime SDKs for iOS or runtime SDK for Android. And lastly, the desktop application is a downloadable app for the desktops that could be built using the SDK for Java, for .NET, or for Qt. Now, in the end, I want to emphasize on security and authentication for each of these apps. And we will talk about it in more detail in the rest of the presentation. Now, next, we want to talk about how you can take your web maps, your services, your features, your content to the next level, where you can provide a specific experience, a specific workflow, or a visual story to your users using web applications. So web applications allows you to extend the content and make it available and services and make it available to the wider audience. And something to keep in mind is, as a developer, when building web applications, there are many options to choose from. And it's completely based on what is the purpose of your web application and what is the level of involvement you want with that application. Now, for example, there are many app templates, there are app builders provided by Esri that will allow you to quickly get a web app up and running with little or with no code. And you can also use our configurable web apps and plug them in within your applications. All this requires less code, or no, it's like a no-code environment. But on the other hand, if you want complete control of your app development, you can leverage our SDKs and APIs to create a more customized app that fits your need. Thomas?
As a developer and partner of Esri, there are many technical opportunities available for you to build with ArcGIS. And we tend to talk about these opportunities into four main areas. The first is extend, and here you are extending ArcGIS products across desktop, web, and mobile applications. You're extending ArcGIS that a customer has deployed, and this could be ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Enterprise, or some of our other products. But you're extending those products and selling your offering to those customers. Next is embed. Here, you are typically building a cloud or SaaS-based solution. You're embedding ArcGIS capabilities in your offering. Next is content. So we work with many organizations that have premium content that they want to offer as ArcGIS ready content to Esri customers. And this is usually vector, raster, and real-time content. And finally, services. We have great partnerships and organizations we work with that provide consulting, managed, and implementation services. Now, for today's webinar, we're really going to focus in on the extend and embed patterns. Taking a closer look here, under the extend pattern, you as a developer have built an app and you sold that to a customer. The customer has ArcGIS Enterprise or Online, could be both deployed, and they're managing that. They're taking your app, they're deploying it within their managed infrastructure, and your app is integrating with Online and Enterprise using ArcGIS Identity, web maps, and layers, and that end customer is logging into your app using their identity. Comparing that to the embed pattern, it's a little bit different. Here, you as the developer or partner are managing both the deployment of your app. Your app, in this case, is also using base maps, geocoding, routing, and maybe some content from ArcGIS Platform. And you're managing that ArcGIS Platform subscription as part of that. So you're selling a fully packaged, managed solution direct to customers. And these are typically very industry or focused or workflows focused solutions that customers need within their organization. And we offer developers the ability to embed ArcGIS platform capabilities, and we'll talk about some other opportunities to embed additional capabilities within these solutions. So I think with that, Brenda, why don't we take a closer look at Extend?
Yeah, now let us talk about and deep dive into the Extend pattern. So when we talk about the Extend pattern, we are actually talking about partners who are integrating or connecting with Esri products. In this case, like Thomas explained, your solution and application will cater and will be sold to the existing or new Esri customers. So basically, you will be creating solutions to address customers' need for more focused and streamlined workflows by connecting to their existing RGS infrastructure, either at desktop, web, or mobile level. And one of the examples I could give today here is one of our products that our partners connect to a lot is customers Esri SaaS instance, RGS Online. And their customers have their content and data stored in form of RESTful services. And we'll talk more about like how that actually happens in some of our slides. So let's go deeper and talk about what are the possible integration options with customers' RGIS system. Like I mentioned earlier, extending on a customer's RGIS essentially means two things. First, you are adding new capabilities. And then second, you're offering a new UX. So since it's a customer's RGIS, we don't want to focus into or like talk a lot about customers' RGIS architecture. Instead, we want to focus on how you as a developer can offer and connect your app with the customer's RGIS. So on this slide on the left, we have possible developer solutions, and on the right, we have the customer's RGIS system. Now, in the case of desktop, you can create an RGIS Pro add-in, and this RGIS Pro add-in will be delivered to customer and then installed locally within the customer's RGIS environment. Now, another way to extend is by creating widgets. Now, widgets are slightly different from how you build a web app for a customer, so I just wanted to call it out. Widgets you build using our builders is hosting in web server, and then that widgets can be registered to customers RGS Online or RGS Enterprise. And customers can pull these widgets that you have built for them into their own applications. And now in case of web applications, RGS JavaScript API gives a way to integrate with the RGS user login into your application by using their RGS credentials. And we will talk more about this in the next few slides. And lastly, the runtime and native apps, you can host the mobile apps that you created into respective app stores, and customers can download it in their mobile devices. You can also utilize the concept called app linking, which gives the option within your application to initiate the login process and the workflow. For example, data collection by connecting it to an RGS out-of-the-box application such as field maps. So in case of Extend, customer brings their own RGS licensing, which means you as a developer don't have to worry about it. What we will be focusing today is on supporting RGS Identity within your applications. Now, there are several ways to authenticate with ArcGIS, but for the Extend pattern, we are primarily focusing on the named user login. In this case, RGS Identity, known as named user, uses a temporary access token created using OAuth 2.0 protocol and authorizes your app to act on behalf of the customer, the user, and access resources within ArcGIS without revealing the user's secure credentials within the application. Now, this is important because some services in RGIS are user-specific and need to be scoped, and RGS Identity allows users to not only access the public services in RGIS, but work with their own user-specific private content. The way identity works in ArcGIS is it starts with creating a user in the RGS environment. When the user has been created, you can assign unique roles and permissions that govern what they can do, such as the ability to create, edit, or view content. A role is comprised of a set of privileges that are assigned to a member. And we also have a concept of groups in ArcGIS, which actually enables users to share and access items within those groups and share items with each other. And there are also different levels of sharing that can be granted within those groups. Now, this is important for you to understand because you might want to create a group in RGS Online to share your application, your widget, or your solution or content with other users or customers in ArcGIS. So let's briefly talk about RGS user types. Now, RGS user type tailors the user experience. It is based on identity, the capabilities and functions the user can perform, and the applications they have access to. And I want to highlight that Esri licenses its softwares by these RGS user types. So when a user logs in your application with their RGS named user, they have access to the RGS content and also to the capabilities they have been assigned in their RGS environment, such as ability to edit, create, or update content. To give you a really quick example, assume there's an application where an office manager can log in and create some work orders. But in the same application, a field worker will only have an editing access to those work orders. And the reason between the two is because in case of office manager, we assigned a creator user type, while in case of field worker, it was more an editor user type. So within your own application, you can actually have users access their RGS content and have different capabilities on the shared content. Now, all the sharing of content within RGS is managed by our sharing API on the backend. This allows you to control what items people can access based on their sharing level. And by default, items are shared privately. So what it means is, like, when you create an item, you are the owner of that item and only you have access to it. But if you want to share that with the users, you can actually share it with the help of a group and invite the users to this group so that they can also see that content. So now that we have talked about the sharing API, the RGS identity, let us talk about how we have made it really easy for our developers to implement the security protocols, which is super important. And to implement identity and manage their user credentials, I want to highlight that RGS APIs and SDKs have the right framework. Let's start with talking about web applications. So a web application is built, assuming it's built on top of RGS API for JavaScript. It supports the Identity Manager module. The Identity Manager module helps the developer to implement the login workflows in a much simpler way. So when the application tries to access a secured resources on behalf of the user, the Identity Manager challenges the user to enter their credentials. And once the user is logged in, then obtains and manages those user access tokens to access the secure content in ArcGIS. Now, similarly for mobile and native applications, RGS Runtime SDK utilizes the Authentication Manager module, which abstracts much of the authentication logic for the developer. So like the Identity Manager, it also challenges the user for their credentials and implements the token workflow. And it maintains the collection of cache of credentials used in previous authentication challenges. So, and this cache can easily be persisted in like an iOS keychain. So now think about if your app is restarted, the cache is automatically pre-populated with all these saved credentials. So what that means is that user doesn't have to sign in again. And for partners, this is very important I'm sure as developers, it's super important for you and it's a really useful capability. And so I wanted to call it out today. So now that we have talked about the identity manager and the authentication manager, let us talk about and let us see all of this in action. Let us dive into an extend demo and an application that I created for this session today. So in this demonstration, I will act as an operational manager at a distribution center who wants to track the fleets approaching to the warehouse and then the incoming freight quantity in those warehouses. So this app will help me adequately plan my labor and efficiently use man hours. Now, the purpose of this demo is to utilize RGS User Types to access the real-time data available to my named user in RGS Online and expose it in this web application that I have built on top of RGS API for JavaScript. And this is a React application that's hosted in Azure, and we are using the RGS JavaScript libraries on client side for some rendering capabilities. And we also have used the latest Esri Calcite design system. Now, before we jump into the demo, let me quickly go over on the right side on the architecture design, how this actually happens. So it starts with a developer creating an app in the RGS dashboard. Once the app is created, you have a client ID generated with it, which you'll use to register the app with the RGS Identity Manager. So now what happens is when a user tries to log into the application, the user is actually directed to an authorization page where the user will enter their own credentials. When we log into the app, and based on if you've implemented a one-step or two-step OAuth protocol, the access token for the session and the refresh token can be retrieved. And in the end, this access token retrieved for the user can help the application, can help you as a developer to pull all the RGS content that the user owns in their own RGS environment. So now let us go ahead and dive into this quick demo. So I will start by logging into this application with my ArcGIS credentials. The user type, oops, I'm sorry. Let me go ahead and do it again. Okay, perfect. Now that I'm logged in, oh yeah, I wanted to highlight that my user type in this case is a viewer. So I can only view the content. I cannot make any edits or I cannot create a new content. So now that I'm logged in my map view, I can see my distribution center and then the E8 fleets in the vicinity. I can track their movements in real time by using this application. And I created the sample simulated data and real-time feed by using the OpenStreetMap road network and RGS Velocity, which is Esri's IoT analytics platform. Now, also on the left, I created this fun card to show you all how using my RGS user access token, I'm displaying my username, my organization name, and also the most recent RGS items edited by me. And something to note, this will change depending on the RGS user logged into this application. So focusing back now on the map view, I can use this application to actually create the drive time areas by just clicking on the distribution center. So the first polygon here shows the trucks within the 5 minutes of the distribution center. And in this case, I just see this one truck, one fleet here. The second polygon here shows the number of fleets that are 10 minutes from the distribution center. And then the last polygon, which shows like this one fleet here, shows the fleet, which is 15 minutes from the distribution center. Now in real world scenario, the warehouse manager will want to know at least half an hour on an hour ahead of time. And therefore you can configure these drive times based on the requirements. Now, on the other hand, I can see the freight quantity here that each of this fleet is carrying. And now I can also build multiple advanced workflows on the client side and server side for this application. But today I'm going to just limit to these functionalities. Now, based on all the information I've gathered in this application, I can actually alert my staff to start preparing for the inbound freight. So to wrap it up, this was a quick demo on how you as a developer can create a web application to create streamlined workflows for Esri customers and use RGS Identity to give them access to the RGS content in your own custom applications. And also in the end of sessions, we'll be sharing resources that will help you get started and start creating these amazing applications. So now I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Thomas.
All right. Thank you so much, Brenda. So now what we're going to do is take a closer look at embed. Under the embed pattern, there are a few opportunities available to you. The first pattern is leveraging ArcGIS Platform. Here, you're building an application or a product, or you have an existing solution where you need location services, base maps, geocoding, and routing. And here, you can embed those location services within your offering or application. The next pattern is something that is available to Esri Partners, which is leveraging ArcGIS Identity under this embed pattern. Here you're using not only location services, but you're leveraging Esri's identity framework within your offering. And the third pattern is using advanced capabilities. And here we're seeing solutions that are enabled with some of Esri's SaaS and server software. A lot of the times this is aligned with different content types such as real-time data. You might have vehicles or sensors that are moving in real time that you want to have streamed through your application or product offering. Or it could be raster content or some vector-based content. Now let's take a closer look here at that first pattern with ArcGIS Platform. ArcGIS Platform is a collection of location services that is both extensive content as well as powerful capabilities. This includes base maps, data hosting capabilities, as well as visualization, geocoding and search, routing and directions, being able to access maps and data, as well as spatial analytic tools. We also have developer capabilities for image analysis, real-time mapping, and IoT integration. These ArcGIS Platform location services can be leveraged across desktop, web, and mobile applications that you build. It can be offline or offline, as well as outdoors and indoors as well. So ArcGIS Platform, and you'll see this here in action with a demo that we've put together very shortly. Taking a look though first at authentication, Brenda just talked about with ArcGIS Enterprise and Online, you can use the named user login to access resources on behalf of the user and access those services as well as private data. With ArcGIS Platform though, you have two options. The first is application credentials, and this enables your app to access resources on behalf of the application. This is short-lived access tokens. They're generated via OAuth 2.0 and authorizing your application to access ready-to-use services. Released earlier this year is also now API keys. And this provides access to resources on behalf of your app as well. It's a permanent token that grants your application access to ready-to-use services and with a developer account, private content. And the access to private content is currently in beta. So with ArcGIS Platform, your application is authenticating to access these ready-to-use location services, and you can leverage those application credentials or API keys. Whereas with ArcGIS Enterprise and ArcGIS Online, you're leveraging that named user login. If you look at this a little bit differently, you could be building a client app, and your client app needs, for instance, base maps, let's say geocoding and routing. You can set up an API key or application credential to access those services on behalf of your users. You can also leverage either an ArcGIS API or SDK, but also you can leverage common mapping libraries as well. You can also scope your API keys, and this is a common best practice. So you might want your end users to not have access to routing, but be able to access base maps and geocoding. And so you can go into the developer dashboard and scope your API key to just those services. Additionally, you can have, for instance, the ability to have within your application multiple configurations for maybe different users that are accessing your solution. So maybe one set of users can have access to routing, but then another set of users that access your application cannot access routing. So you, in that case, could set up two separate API keys scoped differently to control their access to those services. A common question as well is, well, if I have hundreds or sometimes thousands of customers for my solution, how can that work? And the great thing here is ArcGIS Platform is very flexible. So you have the ability to, if you want, set up one API key for all of your customers, or you can create multiple API keys to control and be able to report on who's using what within your solution. Of course, there's best practices to protect your API keys and refresh those as you need. So we've built a demo for a fake company here, and this kind of helps demonstrate a number of concepts. So Heating Air Corp has contracts with customers that require a 1-hour response time when they're encountering issues with their air conditioning. Currently, a dispatcher contacts field staff to see who can respond. So we've built this app to help accelerate this workflow. The technology used is ArcGIS Platform base maps, geocoding, and specifically our closest facility routing capability. So it's not a point-to-point routing. It's actually what is the closest facility routing, which is something that's available with ArcGIS Platform. We're leveraging our API keys. This is built with our ArcGIS API for JavaScript ES modules with React. This is leveraging our new calcite design system with some calcite React in there. From a developer tool standpoint, we use VS Code with Azure DevOps, and the app is hosted on Azure App Service and secured with Azure AD. So this is also looking at a scenario where you as a developer are bringing your own identity, right? You have an existing login to your solution or offering, but you want to leverage ArcGIS Platform. So let's jump into the demo. The first thing we'll do is load the application. And what you'll see is actually it's going to redirect me to log in with my identity provider. So we'll log in, and it's going to redirect me into my application. So this is an existing solution secured with our identity provider, in this case, Azure AD. And as you'll see here, there's an existing offering that has an accounting tab and scheduling. And this is the new tab that we've added called Urgent Requests. So these are those requests that are under contract that we need to respond to. On the left, we have the requests that have just arrived. We have the ability to filter on these requests as that list expands. The map itself is showing our field crews in their current locations. At the fully interactive map, we can geocode a location as needed. And on the left-hand side here, you can see that we have our field crews with their current status, green being available, yellow working an assignment and should be available soon, and red not available. If I select one of these urgent requests, in this case, this office building that reports only hot air is being generated, you'll see that we are able to identify field crew members that can respond to this request. But we've configured this routing request to actually say only return field crew members that can respond within 15 minutes, because we need to give them time to get there to meet that SLA in the agreement. So you can see here that we have a few field crew members that can actually respond within that time frame. From here, I would be able to select a field crew member and assign this assignment. So this is a great kind of example of showing how you can bring ArcGIS Platform into an existing offering and that's using a separate identity provider and leveraging those closest facility routing capabilities in addition to having geocoding available with those base maps. And these requests and these field crew member locations are not in a GIS. These could be coming from an external business system or other database, right? And we're bringing this data in and drawing that on the map. Now, some of you might have existing offerings that you are perhaps leveraging a different common mapping library. So one of the things that's really powerful with ArcGIS Platform is that existing apps can be migrated to it. So existing ArcGIS apps can be updated to use the new ArcGIS Platform endpoints very easily. But we know that many organizations use many different mapping solutions, and various reasons why you've made that decision. So one thing that's important to understand is that ArcGIS Platform services are engineered to support these other common mapping libraries. This could be OpenLayers, Leaflet, Mapbox, GeoJS. And we make it really simple for you to pivot your code to target ArcGIS Platform. So your existing investment in your product offering that might be using this mapping library, you don't need to make a big change to that. You just make some use sample code that we provide on our developer website to actually make that pivot to use our base maps, geocoding, routing, and location services. And to show you a quick demo of a GLJS app that we've put together, let me jump into that. So this is a Mapbox GLJS app. It's leveraging base maps from our ArcGIS Platform. And we also have here our geocoding service configured within this application. And so what you can see here is we're able to geocode that point, and the map's able to pan to that location. So if you have an existing offering that's using one of these common mapping libraries, go to developers.arcgis.com and you can switch to start using ArcGIS Platform services. And this is really powerful because we know many organizations like yourself or many developers have existing products that you've invested a lot of time in some cases years. And so we want to make that an easy thing for you to switch to ArcGIS Platform. So with that, we wanted to close here with talking about how you get started and what are some opportunities for partnership. First, to get started with ArcGIS Platform, you can create a free developer account at developers.arcgis.com. We provide a really generous free tier that you can get access to today. And we also have a consumption-based pricing model that's really cost-effective and transparent. For those of you who are building products and are either at that point where you're ready to release or you have an existing product but you want to reach more Esri customers, I highly recommend you become an Esri partner. This is a great opportunity for you to create a business relationship with Esri. This has great benefits such as co-selling with our teams in various industries, connecting in with our global distributor network, listing on ArcGIS Marketplace, being able to get access to roadmap information. We have a great partner community where you can ask questions and access additional resources. And there's also the ability to do marketing with us. That could be through events or other opportunities as well. So there's a lot of benefits for you from a business perspective for becoming a partner. And also there's some opportunities, of course, to work with Brenda and myself and the rest of the technical enablement team to help you kind of build your offerings with ArcGIS. Focusing a little closer on ArcGIS Marketplace, we view this as a really huge opportunity for developers to really, become a partner and list in the marketplace. It's a digital marketplace, and it's a place for you to reach Esri customers. So Esri customers can search, discover, and acquire apps, data solutions, and professional services through this digital e-commerce enabled marketplace. Why list on Marketplace? Well, for you, there's a sales channel to provide trials, generate sales and qualified leads, manage your subscriptions to your product. It gives you brand exposure by reaching more than 300,000 organizations that use ArcGIS, and we have millions of visitors to Esri.com, and collaborate with us. So grow your business digitally. There's outbound user-centric marketing, and also make your offerings aware to Esri teams. So with that, Brenda and Amy, I think we should open it up for questions.
That sounds great, Thomas. Thank you. We're now going to begin answering the questions submitted during today's presentation. We've received quite a few, and we will try to get through as many as possible, but whatever we do not get to today, we will address in the Esri community blog post after this webinar. And as a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel as we go along. So feel free to do that. All right, so the first question that we received, we need solutions that can handle large data sets, such as 2 million records and growing in order to download. What solutions do you have that can handle this?
Yeah, that's a great question. It depends on the type of data, assuming here this is vector data sets. And we have, many options, and I think a lot of times, right, Brenda, it depends on where the data resides. If it's sitting on a cloud platform such as AWS or Azure, we have ArcGIS Enterprise that can be deployed alongside your data and really connect to where that data is. And there's several different formats, obviously, that we support. When it comes to being able to download and maybe publish, I mean, Brenda, do you want to talk about from a maybe Python perspective or another way you would recommend downloading and publishing that data?
Yeah, Thomas. So I think from the perspective of ingesting data in ArcGIS, right, and then exposing that in your applications, we have some best practice around it, how to do that. We want you to be able to connect to your data sources, and we have options for those too. We have practices around how you can not duplicate your data, and also use some of the APIs endpoints that will actually make your process much more faster. So basically appending the data, not rewriting the data every time you're updating it. So there are like multiple practices around it. In terms of web applications, so for example, you're building a web application, we with our new 4x API, we have really good caching at different levels, so like at browser level, at CDN level, and that enables your data to be a whole data set to be able to be displayed in a much better way and a much faster way. So we are working on like enhancing the performance of applications which actually have a lot of content. And if you're interested, like if you're having issues around it and you're interested in talking more about it, feel free to reach out to our team. We are available to help you out through any process that you're trying to achieve within your applications that works, that speaks to integrating with ArcGIS. So
yeah, that was great. Good question.
Great, thank you. For the next question, is there a code snippet in Python to access any content detail from ArcGIS Enterprise that uses an OAuth 2 authentication?
Yeah, all right, Brenda, I know this is probably a good question for you, right? I think we were working on this. You were working on this a few months ago, actually, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's actually a good question. So we do have code snippets. We do have examples on how you can use the Python API. So we have the RGS API for Python to access users' content in ArcGIS, and like you said, using the OAuth protocol, that's the basis. We do have code snippets out there. If you're interested, feel free to reach out. I can help you with that. I know I'm assuming this is some kind of an automated process that you're trying to implement using Python. So I would definitely recommend to check out our Python API and just typing in like, OAuth or user access to ArcGIS content. You'll get a bunch of examples out there. So
yeah.
Wonderful. Brenda, during your demo, there was a question that came in. Was your demo deployed in MS Azure or MS Azure Cloud Platform? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It was a React application, and I deployed it in Azure. That's right.
Yeah, same with my demos as well. They were deployed in Azure, and we deployed and used AWS as well. So it's, yeah, for these demos, we decided to use Azure.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it was really simple because we had our Visual Studio Code we used, and we just like connected Azure through that, and we just deployed it from there. So.
Yeah, and for my demos, which I think there's another question here in a moment, we really wanted to demonstrate the pattern of a developer bringing their own identity, in this case Azure AD, the secure access to the offering, and that has no relation, right, to the ArcGIS components, right? You have your own login, but then ArcGIS Platform is just using the base maps. It's authenticating using that API key. And I think there was a question here about, you know, what about leveraging Active Directory instead of ArcGIS Identity? I'd like to see more examples of using Active Directory. Yeah, I think a lot of times, just to answer that question as well, is if it's ArcGIS Online or Enterprise, the customer, the ArcGIS Identity is using what the customer is providing. So the customer could be using the built-in security, of course, but many times what we see is they're using some kind of SAML provider. They may be using on-premise Active Directory with Enterprise or Azure AD. And that is something where the ArcGIS Identity is just authenticating into that identity provider the customer's bringing. But you as a developer, if you're building something that's just leveraging ArcGIS Platform, you have a lot of flexibility. Maybe you're using AWS Cognito, Azure AD to secure access to your product that people are subscribing to. And again, that authentication to platform is separate from that. So.
Okay, for the next question, can you please reiterate the Authentication Manager used without prompting the user for credentials for the mobile applications using Runtime SDK for Android?
That's a good question. Yeah. So the thing is, we actually, because of security reasons, you can actually do, but the workflow you can do is you can implement the OAuth protocol, and then you can do the two-step OAuth protocol. So what it would do is it would generate a refresh token with your user access token. Now you can take this refresh token and save it back on your server in a secure place, and every time the user would come in, they wouldn't have to log in. It would automatically log in, because your refresh token will generate a user access token for every new session. Now, user would have to log in once in this scenario, and then after that, like I said, you can generate a refresh token and save it on your server, and then keep generating the user access tokens for subsequent sessions. Now, I want to highlight that you can use the new RGS Enterprise, which lets you take one of our supported IDPs and make the sign-in process like in seamless. So if a user logs in with Azure AD into the application, and Azure AD is supported and registered with ArcGIS instance, then when they log in with their Azure AD, they are already logged in the application, but they're also logged in to access any RGS content. So that can be supported through Enterprise. In case of online, the user logs in once and you save the refresh token, and then in all subsequent sessions, the users don't have to log in, unless the user changes their username or password. Yeah. Thomas, do you want to add anything? Did I miss anything?
No, that's perfect. That's really good.
All right, next question. Can you add an API key to an application that it assigned to a group only within ArcGIS Online?
Yeah, I think, there was a few API questions here, so maybe Brenda, we can cover a few, but if you're accessing secure content from ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise, you'll need to use the ArcGIS Identity from the end user to access that secure content. The API keys provide you the ability to authenticate with ArcGIS Platform to consume those services. I don't know, Brenda, if you want to expand on that in any way.
Yeah. So I think with RGS Identity, it's more for secure content, right? Private content that user owns within RGS Online or Enterprise. Like Thomas showed in his demo, API keys can be used to access the location services when user doesn't have to log in, right? When you have an Azure, in Thomas's application, there was an Azure AD implemented, and when the user logged in with their organizational identity, they already had access to maps and location services via API keys. So they didn't have to do that RGS login again. In those scenarios, you can use an API key. But in case where you want the user to access, like I showed in my application, access their content, display that content, you cannot use an API key to do any kind of sharing. to do any kind of user access to their services. So in that case, it's always an identity being implemented.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly.
All right, and the next question, does ArcGIS Geocoding Service offer geocoding for addresses across all continents, or is it limited to the US?
That's a great question. We actually do have global coverage for our geocoding, but what I recommend is it does vary based upon some countries and some regions. So please, if you just Google, actually here, I'll share my screen real quick and kind of show you what this looks like, because there's some countries where we will have less coverage than others. So you should be able to see my screen here. If you Google ArcGIS geocoding coverage, you can actually see a great map here that shows coverage that we have throughout the world and across the various continents. And you can actually see within this where we actually have what level of quality we would rate it. So in the United States, we have a level 1 quality, where elsewhere we may be a level 2, and there's lots of details and metadata around the supported languages that we have as well within the geocoder. So definitely take time, visit this site here to get a good understanding of what our coverage is for our geocoding service.
All right, next question. Is Esri ArcGIS ID available as a standalone identity management as a service in addition to using it in integrated applications?
It is not, no. So the ArcGIS Identity is really just from a perspective of integrating with that customer's GIS deployment. We don't provide that as a kind of identity as a service, as you would see maybe from other cloud platform providers, like from other platform providers. So.
Okay, going back to geocoding question, to achieve a high performance geocoding service, for instance, 500 points per second, can you give a ballpark of what the infrastructure, RAM, server specifications setup should look like?
Yeah, it's difficult to give an exact answer to that for RAM or server specifications. I think there's two things though to understand. One is you can use ArcGIS Platform's World Geocoding Service, which is a platform as a service. So that's hosted and managed by Esri. We also do offer a geocoding capability that you can deploy in your own managed infrastructure. In that case, you would need to, size it for your own RAM and server specifications. And what I would recommend is reach out to your account manager or partner manager, and we can kind of talk through that in a little bit more detail, because we would need to kind of better understand your deployment pattern and use cases in order to kind of give some recommendations on for RAM and CPU.
All right, next question. We have 7 million customer enterprise geodatabase. In ArcGIS dashboards, the data rendering is way too slow when accessing the data. How can we handle it to speed up the data rendering in ArcGIS dashboards?
Yeah, I'll go first, and then Brenda, maybe you offer your ideas. But again, it does. This is assuming that you're hosting it within enterprise, but there are some best practices to optimize data rendering and visualization. For this, I would say I would look at first, where is the bottleneck? Sometimes when you see performance issues within the client experience, it's assumed immediately that maybe it's the application, in this case, the dashboard's issues, but it could be a number of different things. It could be your geodatabase, it could be the server tier, it could be your network, it could be also some other configurations. Now, we do have a tool that we provide called ArcGIS Monitor. It's actually a product that you can purchase that helps you really examine where is the performance issue coming in. Additionally, you can also do some configurations on the map itself. So at various scales, when are you trying to draw what types of data? And that also could help to optimize the drawing. So there are some best practices and techniques that you could use to try to optimize the visualization of the data in the dashboard. I don't know, Brenda, do you have any additional thoughts or advice for that?
Yeah, I think you said it all, Thomas. Just like a couple of thoughts, do a really simple check. Go in your map viewer, load your map, and have your data loaded on top of that map, and see if the performance is good in your map viewer, but it's deteriorating in the dashboard. I think the first check you could do is right there, because if it's not good in your map viewer, then definitely there's something with the way you're updating the data, the way your geodatabase is, all the server stuff will come up there. But if it's good in your map viewer, it's fast, but you're having issues with your dashboard, then I would say it's the way the dashboard is configured. So just to expand a little bit on that, what I mean by dashboard being configured is that you might be loading all your data set at like the world level, at the global level, which the use case might not be for your customers. So you might want to maybe start your dashboard with like on top of United States. If you want to focus on just high tension areas, you might want to just focus on those areas. Also, there's like different zooming ways within the map and then the widgets within the dashboard. So like if you click on list, a record in list, it will zoom your map in, which is perfect, which is what the experience is supposed to be. But sometimes what would happen is you have a map at global level, and then you're trying to load all those multiple 10, 15 widgets in your dashboard with that map. And that comes down to your dependency between your map and then the widgets. So I think it's really about how you're configuring your dashboard that might be affecting it if it's not, outside the dashboard, the data is loading fine. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. And if you have any more questions, reach out to your account manager or partner manager, and Brenda and I will be happy to jump on a call and take a look and see what we can do to help you.
Yeah.
All right, we have time for a couple of other questions. One is, can you use something to locate long linear referencing, such as road to locate mile points?
Yeah, can you repeat the question, Amy?
Sure. It says, can you use something to locate long linear referencing, such as road to locate mile points?
So we do have. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was just highlighting. I think we are talking about the linear referencing system, the LRS tools that we have.
Correct.
All right.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And then for our last question, what is the best way to get engaged with some Esri SIGs to get feedback during our final stages of development and prepare for a solution launch? Should this be done at Partner Summit?
Yeah, so we have various events throughout the year, virtual events currently. So Partner Summit is a great event that's coming up next week that's exclusive to Esri Partners, where you can go and find out information about really everything, what's happened throughout the year for partnering, technical and business and marketing, but also what we're planning through the end of the year. When it comes to your final stages of development and prepare for a solution launch, if you're looking for feedback about your specific offering, just work with your partner manager and they can connect you in with the right Esri teams. So it might be you want to get your solution awareness out there to certain Esri teams. That the best way to do that would be through your partner manager.
All right. Thank you, Brenda and Thomas. And thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar, Deploying Solution Built with ArcGIS and Exploring Opportunities as an Esri Partner. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact me using my email address in your follow-up email. Once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey on the presentation, and we would appreciate it if you would complete that and provide your feedback. We will be providing a recording of this presentation, which will be available within 7 to 10 business days on the GeoDev webinar landing page where you registered. On behalf of Esri and our presenters, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.